times the United States Supreme Court can't count to 5. They can only count to 4. And if they can only count to 4, they can't make bad law concerning gun rights, as consistent with the Second Amendment, but with a huge asterisk there. And similarly, they are allowing a ban in Rhode Island and therefore in other states on high-capacity magazines. We got 2 cases on today's list for the Supreme Court in which the Supreme Court has allowed a ban on AR-15 and other long assault rifles in states like Maryland and across the country.
Did the Supreme Court just pull a wild U-turn on gun rights? After fighting for gun freedoms in the Bruen case, they've now upheld AR-15 bans in Maryland and Rhode Island. What's going on here? Stick around as we untangle this legal mess and explore Justice Kavanaugh's cryptic hint that the debate isn't over yet. Could this throw even more chaos into the gun rights tug of war? You'll want to hear what's next in this legal roller coaster. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. The Supreme Court's decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen was supposed to be a watershed moment for gun rights in America. That ruling, which struck down New York's restrictive concealed carry laws, was celebrated by gun rights advocates as a triumphant reaffirmation of the Second Amendment. It didn't just change laws in New York, it sent a ripple through the country, opening a door many believed would finally shut down widespread bans on firearms like AR-15s. Fast forward to today, and SCOTUS seems to have slammed that door halfway shut again, leaving people confused, frustrated, and in some cases, furious. The twist: Maryland and Rhode Island had laws on the books banning AR-15s, which many thought were directly in the crosshairs after the Bruen decision. But instead of following the precedent that the Bruen ruling had supposedly cemented, the Supreme Court shockingly upheld the bans.
Both of those things for now do not appear, the way those cases have been developed, to violate not only the Second Amendment on the language of the Second Amendment. There has to be a historical analog, a historical tradition of banning these types of weapons going back to the old-timey times. Through a decision by Justice Alito back in 2022, we call the Bruen decision, which says in order to have these bans survive, constitutional analysis.
Yep, the same court that was seen as the new champion of gun rights. One moment they're rewriting the rules, the next they're letting states enforce some of the very restrictions Bruen seemed to challenge. It's enough to make you wonder, was that the point all along? What makes the AR-15 such an emotional lightning rod? Whether you call it a modern sporting rifle or a weapon of war, its reputation precedes it. For some, the AR-15 represents freedom, self-reliance, and a cornerstone of their constitutional rights. To others, it's the weapon almost synonymous with mass shootings, symbolizing chaos, violence, and the need for stricter gun control. It's not just a firearm, it's a statement. And now, thanks to SCOTUS, that statement is even harder to decipher.
In these cases, so don't be surprised if I come back with a hot take and I tell you a year from now that they are not going to allow an AR-15 ban and they're going to find that it's inconsistent with the Second Amendment. And we have in the dissents and in the statements by Kavanaugh, by Thomas, in the Maryland case, we know what they're going to do in the next year or two. This has been a long term for everybody. It started in the first Monday of October and goes until they issue their last decision at the end of this month.
Take Maryland, for instance. For years, gun rights advocates have been itching to challenge its bans, buoyed by the kind of momentum Bruen generated. When the Supreme Court declined to hear these cases, it wasn't just a legal pause. It sent shockwaves. Advocacy groups were stunned. Many had lined up, almost giddy, expecting to see the bans dismantled. In Rhode Island, a similar air of anticipation hung over the state, with people bracing for another scorched earth ruling on behalf of the Second Amendment. What they got instead, a no decision that essentially upheld the bans and some serious "what just happened" energy echoing across the country. If you think nobody's enjoying this, think again. Gun control supporters are cheering, but it's not relief, it's confusion wrapped as celebration, like finding out you won a raffle but have no idea what the prize even is. And then, out of left field, Justice Kavanaugh decides to spice things up with a classic cryptic SCOTUS comment. He suggested this AR-15 issue might not be completely resolved, leaving the door cracked open for potential future cases. Now, I don't know about you, but the words "might not be resolved" from a Supreme Court justice don't exactly scream clarity. It feels more like SCOTUS dropped a legal breadcrumb trail for us to follow, and no one knows what's waiting at the end of it. A refined ruling, a complete reversal, a situation even messier than where we started. Kavanaugh could have left everyone with a clear roadmap, but instead handed the country a riddle.
Maryland's assault weapon ban went up to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. It bans AR-15s. It was passed originally in the wake of the Sandy Hook disaster, elementary school massacre, primarily focused on the AR-15. The problem with the AR-15 in America is that it's proliferated. It is like the number one long arm that people have in their homes. They are very similar to military grade weaponry like the M16. And if they are military grade weaponry or something like it, then they shouldn't be allowed to, a citizen should not be allowed to bear them. They're not bearable.
So, what's going on here? One theory floating around is that the court's decision, or lack of one, could be about strategy. Maybe SCOTUS is trying to play the long game, pacing itself to avoid a massive national relitigation of gun laws all at once. Some say it could also reflect divisions within the court itself. Not every justice is as trigger happy on overturning laws as their prior votes might suggest. Others argue this could be an intentional signal to state legislatures, telling them to go ahead and test the limits until SCOTUS is ready to step back in. Look at Kavanaugh's comment again. If he's saying the issue isn't over, does that imply SCOTUS is fine with a patchwork of laws for now? Or is it hinting that the court isn't done rewriting gun rights entirely? Regardless of SCOTUS's intentions, one thing's clear. The aftermath of this decision doesn't feel clean cut. Instead of clarity, we've got an even blurrier picture of how gun rights will evolve. On one side, you have gun rights supporters fuming, arguing that the court is backtracking when it should have doubled down after Bruen. On the other, gun control advocates cautiously optimistic that this move might give states breathing room to enact tougher restrictions. But even they aren't popping champagne. The uncertainty is equally frustrating to them. If anything, both camps are left waiting, wondering if they're gearing up for the next courtroom showdown or if SCOTUS will continue its streak of mixed messages. So here we are, stuck in no man's legal land. This ruling hasn't been framed as a definitive stance, but more like a vague shrug that carries major consequences. States are looking over their shoulders, activists are revving up for battle, and all eyes are still locked on the court that just flipped the script. Could this decision signal a significant shift in SCOTUS's approach to the Second Amendment, or is it just a weird blip on their judicial radar? Well, if you thought this ruling was chaotic, wait until you see the ripple effects it's unleashing in state legislatures and courtrooms. Things are only getting messier from here. The Supreme Court isn't just making waves, it's creating a whole storm of legal chaos with this latest ruling. By upholding AR-15 bans in Maryland and Rhode Island while seemingly championing gun rights in the Bruen case, SCOTUS has thrown the law into a tailspin.
We've allowed them to proliferate doesn't mean they're consistent with the Second Amendment. And those two federal courts have said, nah, those are military grade and those are outside the protections of the Second Amendment. These two rulings, at least for now, indicate that Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, and Amy Coney Barrett have slid over to, as we have said, they are the center-right, came up from Maryland. What came up from Rhode Island is currently the law of the land. States can have on their books bans on large capacity magazines and bans on AR-15. But Kavanaugh pointed out, here's the big asterisk, and they help make the law because if they join with the three on the moderate wing, the Democratic appointed justices, they'll form a voting block of 5, and things will go their way.
What's legal today might be illegal tomorrow, and the biggest question on everyone's mind is, what's the next turn on this legal roller coaster? Right now, no one knows if they're heading up the tracks, racing down, or about to derail entirely. Let's start with the basics. SCOTUS's ruling has left laws on AR-15s tangled in a weird legal limbo. Imagine being a gun owner in Maryland. You've been told for years that your state's AR-15 ban might not hold up, especially after the Bruen decision. If anything, you you were probably gearing up to celebrate the ban getting wiped out entirely. Instead, the Supreme Court stepped back with what looks like a nod of approval to the ban. Meanwhile, in other states without AR-15 bans, people are breathing easier, happy that this decision didn't come for their guns. Yet, the inconsistency is the real kicker. Depending on where you live, this ruling either feels like a win or a threat. It's all very Supreme Court the Choose Your Own Adventure edition. That's the scary part. This isn't just about AR-15 or even guns in general. It's about the way the Supreme Court seems to be playing what some are calling legal chess. Instead of straightforward rulings, they're leaving breadcrumbs, cryptic comments from justices, half decisions, and unclear paths forward. The ambiguity isn't calming tensions, it's fueling them. By tossing issues like this back to the states and lower courts, SCOTUS is forcing everyone to fight the same battle over and over again across different jurisdictions. It's not just exhausting, it's unsustainable. And yet, here we are. The legal roller coaster shows no signs of slowing down, and SCOTUS is in the driver's seat. Will this ruling give more states the courage to push forward with bans? Or have they just opened the door for an even bigger Second Amendment showdown down the line? One thing's for sure, this era of legal unpredictability isn't going anywhere, so fasten your metaphorical seatbelts. Oh wait, that might be illegal tomorrow too. The future of gun rights in America has never been murkier, and this latest Supreme Court ruling has done little to clear up the fog. In fact, Justice Kavanaugh himself hinted that the AR-15 issue could land back on the court's docket sooner rather than later. Think of it like getting a rain check from a Supreme Court justice. Not exactly the clarity anyone was hoping for. His comments have only added more fuel to the debate, raising questions about whether the court will stick to its previous Bruin logic or pivot even further away from it. Either way, it looks like this isn't the last we'll hear about AR-15s in the courtroom. What's got everyone's attention now is how this ruling might embolden states to test the limits of gun control. Maryland and Rhode Island just got a green light, at least temporarily, to hold on to their AR-15 bans. Some states, especially those already leaning towards stricter gun regulations, are watching closely to see if they can push similar measures through without getting slapped down by SCOTUS. California's probably drafting something as we speak. Meanwhile, other states might take a more cautious approach, wary that the court's next ruling could go in the opposite direction. It's like everyone's playing legal Jenga, waiting to see how much they can stack before the whole thing collapses. Part of this instability comes down to who's making the decisions. Every time a president appoints a new justice, the ideological balance of the court shifts slightly, changing how landmark cases might get decided in the future. The court's approach to AR-15s might look different 5 years from now, depending on who's sitting in those 9 seats. For gun rights supporters, this makes the judicial appointment process feel just as critical as any court ruling. The same goes for gun control advocates. Both sides know that the court's ideological makeup ultimately decides which way the legal pendulum swings. And right now, the pendulum isn't just swinging, it's practically doing backflips. That unpredictability has some people asking whether the confusion around AR-15 laws could spill into other areas of American law. After all, if the Supreme Court is willing to create chaos around the Second Amendment, what's stopping them from doing the same with other constitutional questions? The balance of power between states and the federal government, voting rights, presidential authority, any of these could be thrown into the same kind of legal limbo we're seeing with gun rights. It's a tension that spreads far beyond courtrooms, bleeding into politics, state legislatures, and public trust. Here's another thing to think about. The deeper goal might not even be about AR-15s at all. Some argue that SCOTUS's rulings in cases like this are about crafting a slow, deliberate redefinition of constitutional interpretation. They're not flipping switches, they're moving chess pieces. By issuing rulings that seem vague or contradictory, the court forces both sides to keep fighting their battles on shaky ground. That might sound strategic, but it leaves millions of Americans trying to navigate laws that feel more like quicksand. Gun owners in particular are left wondering if the AR-15 they legally bought 2 years ago might turn illegal this time next year, depending on what SCOTUS decides to do next. Justice Kavanaugh's hint about revisiting the AR-15 issue captures the essence of this uncertainty. It's like a teaser trailer for a sequel nobody asked for, but everyone now has to prepare for. Will the court double down on the precedent set by Bruin, reaffirming a broad Second Amendment right to own firearms? Or will they continue hedging, leaving the states to fight it out in courtrooms across the country? Nobody knows, and that's exactly what makes this such a volatile time for gun rights in America. So where does all of this leave us? Right now, gun rights in America are less like a straight road and more like a legal legal chessboard. Every state, every activist group, and every federal judge is playing their next move, trying to guess what SCOTUS will do next. And the truth is, nobody, not even the justices themselves, seems entirely sure. What's clear though is that this unpredictability is rippling outward, shaping not just the laws that govern guns, but the very framework of American law itself. As the dust settles on this ruling, one thing is certain: the Supreme Court has made the debate messier, louder, and a whole lot harder to predict. The Supreme Court's unpredictability isn't just about guns, it's changing how laws are even understood in this country. One minute, they tighten the reins on restrictive gun laws, the next they're upholding AR-15 bans. It's as stable as Jell-O on a washing machine. If Justice Kavanaugh's hint about revisiting the AR-15 issue tells us anything, it's that the debates are far from over. That's why staying informed is crucial. Whether you're pro-gun rights or for stronger controls, this legal chess game impacts everyone. What's SCOTUS's next move? Who knows, but boring isn't on the menu. Stay curious.